So I was trying to think, what is the furthest south, like, in the country that you've been to? Like, I guess there's what you could call the deep south, and then there's like the south.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we're part of the south in Texas, but
not really.
Not really.
Right.
No.
I mean, geographically, probably where you grew up.
But I guess
I mean, like, as far as like deep south, I don't know that I've ever been to that part of the country, to be perfectly honest. And I've wanted to, just
reasons.
But political climate
Sure.
makes me
Yeah.
think about it twice. Although I've heard there are some beautiful aspects of it, and obviously a lot of the history and things like that that I've always wanted to check out. Food, of course, I love Southern food. But I just haven't really had much of a chance, or honestly, like a reason to go.
Maybe we'll circle back around then, maybe on the back end of our conversation. But so my name is Eli.
I'm Denise.
And this is Film to Table. I don't think we've ever wanted to rush home as much as we wanted to after watching the movie we just watched. And the fact that we had to go pick up the dogs from Grandma and Grandpa's daycare watching for us on this afternoon. And then we were low on gas and I was like, God damn it. Like, how many things are going to like prevent us from getting home so we can talk? Because there's so much we wanted to say, but also we're like, well, why don't we just wait until we can like put the microphone in front of us, because we were going to say it anyways. So we might as well just share it with friends and this
is going to be full of spoilers, by the way, because I want to talk about everything.
Yeah, we need to, but we can, so let's talk a little bit about the aspects that we can talk about on the front side, and then we'll get around to spoilers. Because I can talk about a lot of the technical things first that made me super excited about this.
Here we go.
So we're talking about 2025's Sinners, Ryan Coogler's masterpiece.
I mean, he's young. It's early in his career, but so far,
I will say, like,
maybe my favorite of his.
Yeah, I haven't seen Fruitville.
I haven't either. That's true.
So we need to watch that. But I mean, I really, really loved Creed, the first one.
The first one was really good.
Yeah, the other two.
I thought the other two weren't quite as strong.
No, I think you're milking that franchise a little bit more.
A little bit, yeah.
I think Creed, the first one, was more than plenty to tell that story.
Honestly, I think he's always been, always with the fact that he only has a handful of projects currently under his belt. But I feel like his voice is strongest when it's his original kind of spin on things. And it's funny because as much as, obviously I enjoyed Black Panther and how culturally important that was, I think there was probably one of those cases that there were probably too many hands in the pot as far as
absolutely
making certain decisions about certain scenes, and it has to tie into this or to that, and has to have so many, whatever. It was a Marvel movie, big production house, so obviously I'm sure he had control of certain things, and somebody else had control of certain things. But on the whole, like the stuff that needed to have a lot of heart and soul, I think really. You really kind of heard his voice through those aspects of that movie. He's
very good at being able to pull that off in a way that is with a lot of confidence, and it comes through on film. And you're right, like in the Marvel movies, I mean, they're still good movies. Black Panther definitely had that, but you could also see the guys in suits behind them being 100%. Like, make sure you put in the
big CG fight at the
end. Well,
end.
make sure you put in the BMW sequence here.
Yeah.
So that we make sure
all those product placements.
Yeah. And a lot of things that just kind of, if they weren't so blatant, I wouldn't care, but whatever. It is what it is. He's very much an old soul for somebody who's only like 38.
I know. It's crazy when I really think about his age.
Yes.
Because I feel like he has so much to say, and he's so smart about saying it. I feel like, as far as the medium of film anyway.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, we can talk a little bit about the movie, but
yeah. Well, let's just kind of
too far ahead.
Yeah. So, without giving spoilers in the sense of what I did, so we watched the trailer for this last year.
Yeah.
And I remember I told you, I was like, I remember being at home and I was like, hey, you need to come watch this.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? It's like, it's the new Ryan Coogler movie. And I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think it's horror because I heard about it on Fangoria.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, well, then I guess it's horror.
Yeah.
But they didn't really talk about what the horror elements were. So I just kind of assumed that the horror was being a black person in America during the Jim Crow era.
Fair enough.
And I was like, oh man, that sounds very frightening. You know, if they're going
right, already.
Yeah, if they're going to make a movie that just depicts, Jim Crow.
Yeah.
But we saw that trailer and I was like, I've seen enough. Like, I'm sold.
Immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a few
Here's
shots that they showed in the trailer and how they summarized it, I thought was really good. So I guess the official, like, what it says here. Let me read this because I don't want to give away. Yeah. Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, two brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that a greater evil is awaiting for them back home. Yeah, sure.
That's the...
I honestly, if that's all you know going into this movie, that's probably more than enough. That's
kind of all you need to know.
Yeah, it's almost better to not know more than that.
100%.
Go into it and just kind of accept it for what it is.
Just enjoy and stop watching the trailers.
Yeah, there's no need for the trailers. Definitely do not watch any of the current stuff that's out now.
There's so much buzz out right now.
Well, and I only say that because, like, you and I were sitting on the couch and I was thumbing through YouTube on the TV and I wanted to watch more because we just got finished watching it. This is the second time I watched it this week. And only because you couldn't go with us on the school night because you had to be up at 4 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, you would have been there.
100%.
But I wanted to know more. Like, I was so excited about it when I got home at like 2 a.m. That I wanted to see more about it. But then I started clicking on some of the videos and they were kind of showing more clips from the movie that were given away just a little bit. So I turned them off so that you wouldn't see them.
Right. Okay.
And I was just kind of like, we'll just wait until like after we watch it this weekend. And so I will like sort of add that if you're listening to this and you really want to go in cold, like don't watch any of the other promo videos or anything that kind of goes with it because
there's a lot of stuff out.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And even by the time our episode of this podcast comes out, time will have passed.
Sure, it'll cool down.
But even then, like, if you didn't make it to the theater, I'm very, very sorry that you weren't able to make it in the theater. And if it comes back in the theater, because I will say this, before we even kind of get into the movie, it is very, very early for any movie to be considered an Oscar movie because it literally we just had the Oscars.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if they try to bring this movie back in theaters on film closer to the Oscars because holy shit, like from the pages in the script to the gaffers to the lighting team, the art direction, the set decoration, the casting, the wardrobe, the music, every single aspect of this movie
all the way through.
God damn, it is so good.
And it's so beautifully shot.
Yes.
It's so beautiful to watch.
Yeah. And so this is the technical part that I'll get into. And then after this will probably be spoilers. So, shortly or like literally like, I think like the week of, or no, it was the week before the movie was going to come out in theaters. This video dropped about how the movie is being released in IMAX. And I was like, what? Like that sounds awesome, but that's like a huge undertaking, right?
Sure.
Like, not that IMAX isn't reserved for anybody, but
sure,
you have to be like a student of film and you have to be a craftsman that understands like what they're going to do with that, because that's not just something that you're like, oh, it's just gonna be IMAX now, and you just like you really have to prepare for that.
It's not like it's the same as shooting anything else.
Yeah, you have to really think about what it is you're going to be doing, and not to say that Ryan Coogler and the team weren't going to be able to handle this, as much as like this must have been in the works for a long time, and they kept it under wraps for whatever reason, but they kept it under wraps from the standpoint of like Christopher Nolan's like, Oppenheimer. So you
like
have
over
to
and
see
over.
it.
Yeah, you have to watch it in
You
IMAX.
have to watch it in IMAX.
On and on and on.
And I have to say, like, I really liked Oppenheimer in IMAX. I think it made a difference, even though realistically, though, like, that's a drama where it's just mostly faces on screen, a lot of dialogue, but the intensity and up to the when they create the reaction that sets off the bomb. Like that, there's something to be said about that, where it's like, okay, that's actually pretty cool. Like, I think for that moment, that was cool to see on IMAX. Outside of the rest of it, debatable. I guess you could say something for like The Dark Knight. I remember seeing that in IMAX, and there were a couple scenes where it's like, wow, like that was really cool. You get to see like when they're in Japan or China. And they kidnapped the one, the money laundering guy to bring him back, and that whole a lot of that sequence,
or
the skyhook thing, a lot of that was done in, was also done in IMAX, and it shows like that. Those scenes were great. So with this movie though,
you said Jordan Peele's Nope.
That's
was
right.
On IMAX, right?
So Nope was filmed on IMAX film cameras, but they didn't put a IMAX print out. It was released in digital IMAX, which is it's without getting too nerdy into all of that. Some people will say it's the same thing, but in a lot of ways it's not. And it's just the way that a film is put through a camera, and how the stops for how it's projected is just different than it is for a digital. So that was done with that, and I'm trying to remember his name. Hoyton, I think, is the name of the cinematographer who filmed Nope. And he's also filmed a lot of like Christopher Nolan stuff. He's also very particular. They actually kind of make fun of him in Nope because the guy that's the cinematographer in there is also using an IMAX camera, and he's very like
I didn't think of that.
He's very particular about it, and that's part of the spoiler. If you haven't seen Nope, but he dies because it's more about I have to capture it on the film.
Perfect,
I have to capture the perfect frame. And so anyway, for this movie they announced like a week before that it was coming out in theaters in IMAX on an IMAX print, and then Ryan Coogler put together like a video, like a breakdown video of how he filmed this movie and how it will be presented in theaters in the different various aspect ratios. In a lot of ways it seemed like a promotion for IMAX, because he was like talking about what you get out of IMAX. All that to say, we watched it today in XD, which is also large screen format, and then on Wednesday this past week I watched it in IMAX, but film IMAX presentation. And the difference being what we watched today is what's called 2.76 by 1. So if you think like 1 by 1 is a square, right? That's where that comes from. So if this stays 1, and I'm kind of holding like a box up to Denise, but like if you stretch it out this way, this is where you kind of get like 1, and then 2 would be that, and then 0.76. So that's where you get widescreen, right? Is that kind of... So what we saw today was the entire film was presented in 2.76 by 1. So it's the widest screen you can get, because they filmed it in the widest like film and lens that you can get. So if you noticed in a lot of what we saw, the shots, were just amazing because they're so wide, and they were just gorgeous, and they fill up the entire screen. They maximized the amount of screen that they get there. Now that said, you lose a little bit on the top and the bottom, right? IMAX is 1.9 to 1. So again, it's like 1 to 1.
9 to 1. Okay.
So really you're just kind of like 2 over.
Not by much, yeah. Okay.
Not by much, but because it's more square also means like you have more vertical space. So even though if I guess the way to think of it is, instead of having top and the bottom letterboxes in IMAX, you kind of have far right and far left letterboxes where there's a little bit more black on either ends, which means the picture vertically, you see more vertically, and you're also seeing quite a bit pretty wide from right to left. But because it's more of like a square image, but a really big ass square
Right,
image.
right, sure.
So, and this is not a spoiler, and I think you can probably see some of this. I think they show this in the trailer, or you kind of see it. But there's the opening scene of this movie is Preacher Boy, who we'll talk about in a minute. He's driving like one of those. I guess kind of like a Model T, or
Yeah,
it's one of those.
I mean, it's in the, what is it, set in the 1930s?
It takes place in 1939.
So yeah, one of those buggy type cars.
Yeah, it's buggy car, but it's sort of like a Model T, but open top. So it doesn't actually have like
Right.
a covered
roof,
top.
yeah.
Just open to the elements. But so you see him coming down a road, and he pulls up to the camera, and he kind of stops, and that's how the movie starts, you know. And and something has happened, and he looks kind of disheveled. In IMAX, when he's doing that, and he's coming into the screen, you can actually still see the road and the road ahead of him. So when he parks the car in front of him, you can still see the car, and you can see everything.
Oh.
Like, it is a huge, huge difference.
Oh, interesting.
And for me, and also because we're movie nerds, I feel like that really put me in Mississippi. Like, you see a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you see a lot of the frame.
Yeah.
And I think some people are like, well, you know, you're already getting it cut off anyway, so what does it really matter? I can assure you, especially with this movie and how much, like, there are scenes where you just kind of see more of the people, and there's something about it that, like, when I saw that opening scene in IMAX, like, I was fully invested, and I felt like I was there. Like, it's so big.
That's that's really interesting, and I hope that at some point I get enough time to maybe go out and see it in that format before they pull it.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that you say that, because even in the, I guess the, I don't know, normal peasant way that we watched it today, it still felt super, I don't know, like absorbing.
Yes.
Just how he filmed it and how everything was set.
Yeah.
I think it was already like felt like you were there. To feel even more kind of engrossed in it in like a format like that sounds really interesting.
It really was. Like, that was one of the few times that I watched a movie without eating any popcorn, no drink, no candy, no nothing. Like, I was just
naked.
Yeah. Like, it was about it's about as old school as you can go. Partly because also in the IMAX you're crammed in there, so there ain't
that's true.
You're not getting up and going to the bathroom or anything. Like, you need to sit and just, you got to wait it out, and you're there. You're there for the true, like, experience. Yeah. Which I know, like, a lot of what Hollywood is trying to hope that more people will sort of do, right? Which is like
just enjoy.
Yeah, just enjoy it. Like, just kind of do it for what it is. Yeah, so I feel like I the other thing I will say before we kind of really get into it, and from a technical standpoint of like you were saying, it's gorgeously filmed. Like, it
really is.
It's thought beautiful. Process of like how they were going to frame and the amount of work that went into that. The cinematographer was Autumn Durald Archipel, I think. I don't know if that's like a Native American last name.
The DP?
Yes. She is a let's see here. I don't know if it's listed where she is from.
She's Filipina, isn't she?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if IMDb has that listed unless you saw that.
I'm pretty sure I saw it in one of the the things that I follow online. Okay,
yeah, it says she was born in Ventura, California, but she may have like
her roots.
Yeah, her roots may be Filipino. Also, Autumn kind of sounds like a Filipino
I guess so.
kind of name. Yeah, she I actually watched a little bit of a making of with her and Ryan Coogler, and it was really cool. Like the little bit, that was actually the one that I was watching and I turned off because I was like, oh, they're gonna give away a little bit more than, because they want to talk about some of the frames and some of the shots, and I didn't want you to see any of that, so I kind of backed out of it. But yeah, it was really cool because she's like the first.
Yeah, so she's the first woman director of photography to shoot a movie on large format IMAX film.
Right. and that is a big honking camera, and she had it like on her shoulder, like
she's Filipina and black.
Okay, awesome. I feel like, I mean, if you really want, it sounds gimmicky when people say like, if you want the true experience, you have to see it in IMAX.
This is sponsored.
Yeah,
by
sponsored
IMAX.
by IMAX.
Please give us money.
But I will say, like, this is one of the few times, like, next to The Dark Knight, where I feel like if you have the opportunity to see it in IMAX, you really are like, it's a disservice to like you if you're a movie lover, and to like the artists if you don't see it in IMAX, because like seeing Mississippi, although I think they filmed it in like parts of Australia and a couple other areas.
Oh, really?
But I guess the way they are representing like Mississippi on film, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think, I guess to speak to just a few more like the technical aspects of things, like, the casting, the art direction, like the casting of the like I wasn't, I mean, outside of Michael B. Jordan, I was not really aware of everybody who was in this movie.
It's so fun, just kind of like inserting some random nonsense, but it's kind of funny. I just got off the a phone call with my sisters because they had just literally, they watched it the same day. They just caught like a later showing, and so I called them to talk about it. We did like what is it called, like a video call between the three of us, and we were just kind of laughing at how I guess my sister saw on social media that there's a lot of women that even though they usually don't watch horror movies, that they came out to see this movie, and it's mostly because of you get 2 times the Michael B. Jordan for the price of 1 ticket, and apparently that's a big selling point for a pretty decent chunk of the audience. And it's funny because we were chatting about how, like, I mean, this is not a spoiler at all. I think they say it in they say it in the synopsis, but he plays twins,
right?
And it's kind of funny because we were like, between the three of us, we're like, was that really necessary to cast him like as as a twin? They could have just had like they could have just been really close brothers, and they could have had another actor, and we're like, well, it's like 2 Michael B. Jordans in one, so they had to fight each other, and so that's perfect. So.
Yeah, I don't think anybody. Yeah,
I don't know. Everybody's complaining that much.
I think especially our audience did not have any problem with that, which we can speak to here in just a minute.
Yes.
Before we get into spoiler territory, but like I actually didn't know that Haley Steinfeld was in this. If that's how you say it.
Yeah, I guess I missed that as well.
I had and I think partly because I wanted to not pay attention, but like she was great, and I only say that because like with her being in a lot of Marvel stuff and a lot of other things, like I almost feel like she's been a little bit typecasted for like certain roles, I guess, that like she's
also been around for a minute now.
She has.
We saw her first, I think, in True Grit.
That's right.
With the dude.
Yeah.
But then after that, she's been kind of a little bit
bouncing around
like a couple different little projects.
She's like Pitch Perfect and some of those other like.
She's done some indie movies as well, I think, but she's done some high profile stuff too.
Yeah, but I think when she kind of landed into the Marvel universe,
and then I think she had like a singing career at one point.
Yeah, like she was like in the Hawkeye stuff and other like.
Right, and she's been great.
No, yeah. I mean, she's adequate for those roles, but I feel like in this movie she was like it's almost like she had to step up her game because of all the other people around her.
That's probably
and I feel like everybody in this movie was like really
bringing
good.
It. The one actor, Wunmi Mosaku, she was in a couple of shows that we've seen. Namely, was it Lovecraft County?
Oh yeah,
right. She was in that, and she was awesome in that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see her getting projects like this because she's been amazing.
I loved Delroy Lindo, who is the one of the old. He's one of the old. He's like a jazz guy or not a blues guy.
Yeah.
In this movie, but that guy's been around for a very long time.
I was kind of shocked that he was in it. I didn't.
I had no idea that he was in
I
this.
love him.
Delta Slim was his character.
So good.
Oh, he was so good. And I will say again, just from the level of like everything that was put into this movie in detail, like the articulation of the dialogue by the black people in this movie was like as spot on as I've ever heard of a movie in the late 1930s, early 1940s. Not to say, I mean, this is like obviously not a knock. It's just the reality of it, right? Whereas like a lot of black people from that era were not as educated, like in the schools and stuff. So
well, I mean, it wasn't available to
right,
them, right?
Exactly. And well, I mean, it was for probably a few.
There's some, yeah.
There were some.
Oh, totally.
But I think like for the majority, that's where a lot of you would hear like this slang or drawl, like in their
yeah. I mean,
vernacular.
That certain vernacular emerged because of just the circumstances of their situation.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to like really key into that.
Yeah.
And everybody, I don't know, like, I mean, we don't know, we're not from that specific area, or we're not big linguistic type people, but to my ears, it sounds really consistent all the way through with everybody.
Yeah. But it sounded like I definitely was in the South. Like,
yes.
And that I loved and appreciated, like, from everybody, because they all had a little bit of a twang.
Like a drawl.
Yeah. But it was really, really good. Yeah, I mean, there's so many just technical aspects. The soundtrack is just unreal. Like, it's
pretty phenomenal.
So good.
Ludwig Göransson was the music guy on this, and he's done everything from Christopher Nolan projects to The Mandalorian,
right?
To the what is it? The Boba Fett show.
Oh yeah, the Book of Boba Fett.
So he's done like even a couple other. I want to say, I can't remember now, but yeah, he's kind of the hot new kid with a lot of these type of productions, but you can see kind of the range that he's able to bring, which is really impressive, because all of these different projects are so different from one another.
Yeah. I would like to think or hope that everybody who worked on this had a really good time. Like I hope so. I hope there wasn't some, like fallout, of just some terrible, like, management and issues, like similar to like, the substance, and things like that. And we can also get into a lot of the other things, but we can go on and on with that. I would probably say from this point forward, like we're definitely going to talk spoilers now, because we want to dive into like the meat of this movie.
Yeah.
But I will say, just from a pure like craftsmanship of people like involved in this, like this is one of the few times it's like watch the credits. And to watch the credits for two reasons. There's two end credit sequences after the first set of credits. Then there's like a little, like a Marvel whatever thing
like
at the end, like a stinger, and then the entire credits play, and then there's another one at the end, which is kind of more like an Easter egg.
Just a nice little little nibble.
Yeah, at the very, very end.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, take the time to look at everybody's names on the screen when you're watching those credits before you wait for the last stinger, because everybody who's listed there like deserves like props for like the types of movies that we want. Like everybody complains about like, nothing's original.
It's all remakes, sequels, and blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah. Well, here it is. So fucking eat it up.
And he fucking swung for the fences with this too.
Yes, he did.
Incredible.
So yeah, let's get into spoilers.
Oh, real quick, when you're talking about the credits, did you notice that they had like quite a few lines for different consultants that they use? Did you see that? There's like music consultant and this consultant, but the top consultant was like twins consultant.
That's right.
And I'm like, wait, what?
I did see that when we were watching it in IMAX, because it was so big on the screen. I was going to mention that to Alex, because I was like, wait, did that say twin consultant? Like,
I don't know. I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I was looking for different things this go around, which I think there were like dialect.
Yes, there's a lot of dialect.
People and whatnot. But okay, so spoilers from this point going forward. Yeah. Okay, holy shit. I did not... Okay, so I guess a few of the spoilers are to just kind of get it off right from the get-go. So we knew this was going to be a horror movie, but I didn't know what kind of horror movie this was going to be.
The horrors of racism.
Yeah, I just assumed it was going to be
as much as we could kind of think up, but we were also like you were saying earlier, we're kind of avoiding as much of it as possible.
I just assumed the KKK was going to be like the villains,
at least part of it.
Yeah, and it turns out kind of,
wrong.
but not wrong, but not really.
Yeah.
But I loved how the opening sequence talks about how like some people just have the power of music in them to draw like this like they're able to draw from different times in our universe, whether it be past or present or future. And I was kind of like, wait, what? Like, where is this going?
Yeah.
Because that's literally right in the beginning where they sort of do that.
It's like in the narration, they're talking about how that it's almost the power of the storyteller, but through music.
Right.
And it's just like a quick kind of like almost kind of out of nowhere, because it was kind of there's nothing happening that would have indicated that that's what it was going to be about.
Right.
It was just kind of the introduction to like, some people have this power, and it has this effect, and sometimes it can draw from all of these times and places, and sometimes it can draw evil. And
I love that.
I was like, oh wow!
It feels like you're sitting at a campfire and someone's like, I'm gonna tell you a story.
It's like the establishing lore that's like, oh, okay, that's what we're going for.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you don't really understand it just yet, but when it comes, it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
So you get this story where basically the synopsis is saying these two brothers are back in town. They're setting up shop, and they're telling people that they're setting up a juke, which I was familiar with the term like jukes, and it was like something for black people back then.
It's like a dance hall, I guess.
It's like a dance hall. It's what would be equivalent to like, generally they were underground because obviously like, or not underground, but they were like away from everybody else because they were not supposed to be gathering or doing their own things. But the opposite of that would probably be like a honky tonk or something for like white people, and I only see that because so we're recording this, and then if you want to listen to Top Shelf video, in that we actually talk about the movie Crossroads, which is the only other movie that I can slightly kind of compare to this.
Not the Britney Spears movie.
Not the Britney Spears one. No. This one's from 1986. And in that one, there's a blues player who's played by Ralph Macchio, who is trying to meet up with like somebody that he idolizes that is a blues man. But he's trying to also understand like why he sort of faded away. And it turns out he had made a deal with the devil at the crossroads. Okay. And so that's what that movie's about. This movie, I had no idea that like music would have such that huge impact, because like the brothers are not musicians. They're just setting up this juke in town because they sort of set this little backstory that they were in Chicago and that they were working for Al Capone.
Right. There's a lot of I guess allusions to like the mob scene there, and like alcohol running and all that stuff,
bootlegging, all that stuff, like whatever organized crime they were doing, super
shady shit that they were that ended up doing up in Chicago so that they could kind of make money,
right? And so it sounds like they wanted away from that, so they have now left and decided to come back to Mississippi in the Delta,
right,
to set up their own juke. And they're going to have their own booze, and they're going to have their own music. And they kind of come back into town. They're flashing their money to everybody, their old friends. Because I think they said they had been gone for
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years. So like they were friends with like some of the local shopkeeps.
Yeah.
I guess what would you call those back in the day?
Grocers.
I think there was like another name for it, but yeah. Because they kind of had everything, like
right,
or they could provide pretty much all services, which is why they went to go see them, which was like the Asian couple that ran both a grocery store and like an all purpose like sort of shop, right,
right,
where you could I guess if you needed ammo or if you needed paint or something for your house, right?
Old-timey Walmart, basically.
Yeah, or wood. Yeah, actually, they were kind of like the original like Sears, like all-purpose, sort of thing or whatever. And so they're flashing their money around. They're talking about how they're going to start up this juke, and then this young kid who is their cousin. Mm-hmm. And they call him Preacher Boy because his dad is a priest. And the two brothers. They're the Smokestack brothers because it's
Smoke and Stack. That's just their nickname.
Yeah, just their nicknames. Yeah.
One of them is Elias and the other one's Elijah.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah, and so, they are setting all this up. They buy like some property, from like this like shady white dude that just kind of is like
just takes their cash.
Yeah, takes their cash and doesn't ask too many questions.
Right.
But they're kind of telling him that. We don't want to see any clan people on our property or any of your folk. And he's like, clan's been gone, for like years, or whatever. Which, whatever. It was definitely at the height of a lot of that. And so you're kind of just introduced to these two brothers and like their history with the area and the fact that they're just really well known. Everybody knows them, and not necessarily in the best way. Like
right.
If you're running into the Stack brothers, probably you've fucked up.
Not great. Yeah. They definitely had a reputation for like being trouble or around trouble.
Right, which is why they went to the big city to go cause trouble up there.
Find bigger trouble.
Yeah, they're worthy of big trouble in a big city. So they're back and they're kind of doing their thing and they're setting up their juke, and you get to kind of meet this cast of characters that are all going to be helping out, which starts with like Preacher Boy, and
who is conflicted about him wanting to play music, but his father wants him to kind of follow him into the preaching business. Yeah. Well,
his father is a preacher.
Right.
And so he, his father is really telling him, like,
the music is the devil, so don't do that.
People are lusting over each other, and like you're just kind of asking for trouble if you're going to be around that,
right?
And he does talk to him a little bit about how he's good at what he does, and that's like he's like you need to beware of the devil, because one of these the devil's around when you're around that kind of stuff, and one of these days the devil's going to follow you back home,
right?
So you need to be careful. And so just from the onset, it's very ominous. Like you're like, oh man, so we're gonna for me, I was like, oh man, is this gonna have the devil in it? This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. We didn't really know what direction this was gonna go. Just we'd avoided so much of the media surrounding it before we watched the movie. So it could be the devil. I don't know.
Could be the devil, yeah.
Who knows?
And like I said, because I had watched Crossroads when I was younger, and that was like a movie about the blues and making a deal with the devil, and that always seems to be the very tropey,
it's a fun kind of story trope.
It is. I mean, you have the devil came down to Georgia,
right? Exactly.
And that's about playing against the devil music wise. And so with Preacher Boy being the guitar player, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome. We're gonna have the devil, and I would love to see what that looks like. And so Preacher Boy is the first one they pick up. And then they go into town, and then they meet the Asian couple because they can provide all the food, basically almost like
kind everything. They're like an all-purpose stop, basically.
And the wife can make signs, so she's gonna create a sign for the juke, and the husband's gonna sort of kind of bartend, sort of kind of be extra hands on site. So they pick them up. They're now part of the group. And then they go, I guess, Preacher Boy and I think it's Elijah, right? Which is...
So Smoke is the one that he goes to find his wife or...
His former wife, I guess. Or
former wife or lover.
Yeah, I think they were just lovers.
Yeah, they never really say, but there's this insinuation that they... there was something there, but then he left town and she stayed behind.
Right. They had
but
a kid.
But who they've lost.
Right.
So there was a lot of history there, but they I mean, flat out just say they still love each other and they still whatever. So she comes along for the ride too, so she can help bartend and like
Cook. They wanted her to
cook. That's
cook
right. They had like
specifically.
food as well.
Yeah.
So it was, getting people to go there, and she knew everybody.
Right.
Because she's also the town kind of I think a hoodoo lady.
Yeah. She's from
so
the Bayou.
yeah. So she does the little magics and little potions and little thinging and little tokens for the people that live there.
Yeah. I honestly could have used a lot more of that.
I loved that aspect of it.
Yes.
And we can talk more about that later, but
Yeah.
I definitely love that they brought that character in.
Yes. Because she was very like, she's like the religious trope, but not in the classic traditional sense.
Yeah, classic way.
She had given you said that was Smoke or was that Stack? I can't remember.
That was Smoke.
Okay. She had given Smoke like a protection
It's called a
protection pouch, like a little
it's called a specific thing, but yeah, it's like a little basically like talisman against evil or bad luck,
supposed to protect,
stuff like that. Yeah, it's protection.
yeah. And so she clearly has a lot of knowledge in something. So again, as a viewer, you're like, okay, this is all starting to line up. I like where this is going.
Yeah,
like you're bringing it along. You're I guess in your D&D party, that would be like your
your healer.
Yeah, it'd be like it could be your healer.
Yeah.
And so Stack has gone with Preacher Boy, and then they go to meet up with
they're going to find more acts for their joint. So they go to the train station because there's musicians playing kind of like street musicians playing for the people that coming off and on the platform, and they find Delta Slim, which is Delroy Lindo, and he's famously
so good, like
good on the harmonica, and he's just this famous kind of locally famous blues player. And so they come kind of knocking on his door, and he's kind of on the down and out because he's had some alcohol issues, which he doesn't seem to care about solving necessarily, but that's kind of just he's accepted that life.
Well, he's also really old, and he mentions where he's like, I don't have a lot of time left on this planet, so I just want to drink it away.
He's just focused on like playing so that he can make money, so that he can drink. That's it. That's all he cares about.
Yep.
But they eventually convince him to kind of come along with them for the ride
to the Juke.
To the Juke, because they told him there's going to be plenty of booze over there.
Yep. and they give him a taste of the booze too. Right. Like they give him a
Irish beer specifically.
Beer. Yeah.
Which I don't know how warm that beer was riding around with them on that little cab.
Yeah.
To and from town. But yeah, so he agrees. They promise to pay him really well on top of him drinking whatever he wants, however much he wants.
Right.
They just want some good entertainment for their opening night.
Right. And then he sort of pimps up the audience while he's there, like the people that are there, right? Yeah. Because then Delta Slim and Preacher Boy, they start kind of playing together, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna find this kind of music and good food and some of these drinks at like our new Juke," and he's kind of selling it up to the audience there, which then we kind of run into Mary, who is played by Haley Steinfeld or Steinfeld, and she, I guess, was in a relationship with Smoke, I guess.
Stack.
Or Stack. Yeah, that's gonna be confusing. With Stack at some point,
Michael B. Jordan.
They had they had a history, and so like she's now sort of attached, even though it's more like a wandering dog. Like she sort of has.
Well, it seemed like a bitter breakup where she waited for him to come back, like basically 7 years, and then he just kind of
bolted town and
just kind of ghosted her basically. Yeah. And so she's really kind of bitter at him, but there's still feelings there. So one of those kind of toxic things that that people end up going through.
Yeah, and I only say like wandering dog because like she's now part of the group, even though if it's from an outside, like she's kind of following them, but she's sort of not
invited.
She's not
specifically,
invited,
but she just ends up there because she knows everybody.
Right.
And it's funny enough, she's also like she's only a small percentage black. I think she said her father is half black or something like super. Right. whatever. But she's super white passing. So, people that don't know her are like, oh, where the hell is she going?
Right.
Or like even the main characters are like, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah. Well, and her backstory too was like, because her dad was half black, that she was raised by somebody else to avoid them being like,
That's
without
right.
the clan trying to take her away.
Right.
Because she's not like pure white, or whatever.
Yeah.
So she's kind of part of now the group. And then the last person that gets introduced, which is awesome, is I've seen this guy
Cornbread.
before. Cornbread.
I feel like he's been in a lot of things. I looked at him up briefly. He was in that show that you liked with The Rock.
That
Ballers.
Yeah,
he was in that.
Yeah.
He's been in a couple like other comedy type things like that. But yeah, he's been around for a minute. I was kind of shocked that he's only like in his like early 40s, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen him around forever.
Yeah, I
in
kind of feel
small
like that
bit,
too.
Like, yeah, in like small bit parts almost.
Right. But he was great.
He's great.
He got picked up as the mounter. Like
Yes.
he's the guy who's going to run the door, and then that's your.
That kind of rounds out the key players, basically.
And so and it's also kind of the end of the first act. Like I will say, like it by no means is the first act bad, but it is paced really well because they're kind of like ratcheting. They give you a little bit of a taste, much like the beer that they give to Delta Slim, where they're like, you get a little taste of this beer, but
you gotta come for the rest of the show.
Yeah, if you want more of this, you're gonna have to stick around.
Well, it's funny too because I know we talked about how this movie is kind of long. It's 2.5 hours almost.
Yep.
And in that first act, it was all kind of world building and establishing all these characters. You don't. At least for me, I didn't feel any of that time go by because I was so interested in this world that was kind of unfolding in front of me and what all these characters were about. And really, it's kind of funny they pointed out the only kind of momentarily confusing part were the brothers, kind of as far as like, oh wait, which one is connected to which one?
Right.
You had to kind of remind yourself a couple times. But kind of at the end of the day, It felt like reading a book.
Yeah.
Like, because there's
read.
so much depth into what was happening.
Right.
And it wasn't, like, obviously it's beautiful visual storytelling, but you can feel how deep everything goes as well. Like it felt real.
But it's like those books that when it's so good that you're just like, oh my God, it's 3 a.m.
Right.
Like,
no, absolutely. Exactly that.
Like,
exactly
that. Where you're just like, oh, I could have watched more. Of that.
Yeah.
Like opening.
It's those books that you feel sad when you're done reading it, basically.
Yeah, and I definitely felt like that after I watched this movie the first time, but I was just as excited to see the second time. But yeah, so the first act structure, like you said, the world building's really great. It's you get a sense of the environment, the dialogue, like what everybody is about and their
relationships to each other,
right, their approach to life, like,
and even like how the Delta is like all the people that they know that are picking cotton, and then you see like a chain gang at the side of the road, and you see that the town that they're in is primarily, I think, like black people when they go to the grocer, but like there's also like white people wandering around, and then the grocer is Chinese family from just from that kind of immigration that has happened around that time,
right?
But they also had deep accents so you had the feeling that like, oh, they've been here for a minute,
right?
So yeah, there was just so much going on that it could have been like, I don't know, that alone in itself almost felt like, oh, that could have been like an HBO show or something. Just kind of getting a feel for where they are and like understanding this town and these people. Pretty excellent work.
Yeah, I feel like so we get this first act, and it really sets up. Well, we also get a little bit of a taste of what Preacher Boy, I guess his name is Sammy, but Preacher Boy can do, because he's talking about how, like, he wants to play the blues or whatever, and he plays a little bit for Stack. And that's right. I know how to remember that it's Stack now,
right?
Because of the stinger at the end. So he's playing for Stack while they're in the car. He's like, "Well, play some of that blues," and I was blown away the first
Jaw
time.
dropped when he starts singing in the car. I
that's
was
really
like,
him.
wait, what is happening just now?
Yeah.
And like this guy, this is kind of a breakout role for him. I looked him up. He's only 20. And he
man.
really did come from a family of like preachers. I think his grandfather was a preacher. So he sang gospel music. And he did get kind of sort of discovered at like a youngish age. I think at 16 he toured with her. So he's had some performance like experience, and that's kind of what his trajectory was performing music.
Right.
And then it sounded like, at least anecdotally, I don't know how true this is, but apparently somebody at one of those shows where he was with her saw him perform and was like, that kid would be great for this movie.
Yeah.
And that's how he ended up here. Just kind of one of those random connections that people were like, this kid is incredible and amazing. And if we can use him in something, we should. Because he's one of those just young people that are just so chock full of talent.
Right.
Like, let's see what else we can get out of him besides music.
Right.
I
I
mean, breakout star.
So I remember when this happened in the theater when he's playing, and I knew it was coming, and then like I already had a grin on my face before it started, and I like was waiting to see how your face like lit up of just like, oh my God. And then like I looked over and you had a big smile on your face, but the people to the right and left of us, we had a really great crowd for this.
So good
for this
to watch
movie.
this.
I was so happy with our crowd because it was rowdy in the right kind of rowdiness.
Yes, perfect.
It we'll just say, it was a lot of black people in our theater.
Yeah.
And so it felt like being at a gospel church, because like every time something would happen,
big reaction.
when this guy started playing, they were like, like I was like, oh damn. I was like, yes, this is so good, because like that's how I feel, but since I'm terrible at emotions, I couldn't like get it out. But it's cool to be around people that like.
Yeah, you heard the reaction like on either side of us were like groups of, I think, primarily women.
Yes.
Black women. It was just so great to hear their reactions, because even like the first panning shot of like kind of closing up into the first time you see Michael B. Jordan, like on both sides, the same exact reaction was like, It was so good. I was okay.
The best part too is like the way that they frame that shot in the movie.
Yes.
You only see one of them.
You see one of them,
and then like
then it pans
get a double
over,
shot,
and you see the both of them, and they're like,
like,
it was
damn,
so good.
Dinner is served. Like
it was so good.
Oh man, I loved it. And like I had a big grin on my face, and I could see that she knew that I was grinning as well. And oh man, it was just it was so much fun. But so so they are now set up for their juke. They are ready to set up for the night. Everything's ready to go. And like it's more just like the start of the evening. You're kind of getting the flow of how all this is going to sort of work, and they're letting the people in, and you're kind of like like any party, it's like it's starting to just kind of kick off.
Yeah, like warming up,
building up. Well, yeah, it's
yeah.
warming up, and it's kind of going and going. So like Delta Slim is playing a lot of the music up to this point. He's just kind of
banging on the piano.
He's playing piano. He's doing some harmonica. Like he's just singing. He's getting everybody. He's like the opening act. He's getting everybody all warmed up.
Yeah.
And which is really good. It feels the vibe, And then everybody else, like they kind of talk about the logistics of like making sure that they're getting paid, for their services.
Which was also like kind of a fascinating little tidbit that like so they're obviously the brothers are concerned about like making this a viable business. But Stack and what is her name?
Not Lisa, but no, that's the little girl. Perling.
No,
right?
the other one.
The woman.
His ex.
Oh,
or
is
his
it Ruthie?
Wife? Maybe.
So it's Ruthie.
No.
Yeah, or Beatrice. I think it may have been Beatrice.
We're running down the entire list.
Yeah, it's Beatrice.
Okay, so Beatrice?
Yes.
No, that's not it either.
Oh, it isn't? I thought it was her. There's like a whole, well, because everybody only has one name, like,
Right.
It's a little off. No, it is. I'm pretty sure it's Beatrice.
Okay. Hang on. No,
but,
it's Annie.
Is it Annie?
Yeah, Annie. Yeah.
Oh, she comes in later. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's Annie. Anyway, so Annie is Smoke's kind of wife, and even she was like, "Hey, if you want people to keep coming and have a good time, you want this place to really attract the people of our community to keep coming here. We have to give a couple of freebies, and we have to let a couple of things slide, and that includes like accepting not just like actual cash money
US
currency,
yeah.
but also something they called like plantation money,
plantation
credit,
right.
which I'm not entirely 100% sure how that works, but I guess it's not technically.
Well, they were literally
like
wooden
wooden
coins. But the way that works is just because plantation people probably owned a lot of the shops in the city. They're basically giving them back their money at a discounted rate, right? So like basically it's like, well, here's like 2 wood nickels, but then you're like, basically I'm still giving you shit for free because that's probably barely enough to pay for whatever it is that
I can get out of there. You're right, right.
So
Smoke is a little he's a little incensed because he wants this to be he feels like they're not making any money, and he's a little like he's concerned about being able to have this for them, whereas Stack is more like, let's just have a good time. Everybody needs to just like know that this is where to go to have a good time, and this is like having family over or whatever. So there's like kind of like a little bit of that back and forth when they first open and they start handing out drinks and start kind of really get going throughout the night.
Yeah. And so like, and then I guess we have to go one step back because it was one sequence that happens right before all of this kind of goes down as the sun is setting, is we see this person who there is no context to any of this.
Yeah.
But there's this person that is running towards a house, and
like out in the field.
Out in the field. Looks like he's on fire.
Yeah, he looks he's got blisters and like
his face is all beaten up,
all messed up.
Yeah, so he gets to a house, and he convinces the people in the house like, "Hey, you got to let me in because like I'm being chased by a bunch of like natives, and they're trying to kill me. They're trying to steal my money, and they kill my wife." And it's
on and on and on.
Yeah, it's very convincing.
Like a big sob story.
Yeah, because
he looks messed up, so it's almost like I can see that.
Yeah, he looks real messed up. And so, but he also notices this person that's come up to the door, and the 2 people that answer the door is like a man and a woman, like these younger white couple. And as he's like telling them, I need your help, he notices that there's like a clan outfit in the background, like
all laid out, ready to go.
Yeah, and and for a reason actually.
Right.
And so it's there. So he's like, "Oh, I got like gold coins. I got money. If you need that, like just help me.
Just let me in."
And then, like, sure enough, like a truck and 2 natives on a horse like pull up, and they're talking to this woman now because they've let this guy in, and like, "Hey, we're trying to track somebody. He's dangerous.
Yeah.
If he's here, you need to like
just let us know.
Let us deal with it.
You need help."
Yeah.
And the woman's like, no. We're white and you're natives, so
yeah, and she's got a gun pulled on them,
like immediately.
Yeah, and she's like, no, like they're like. One of the guys in the truck is like, we should probably get out of here.
Yeah, like nervously looking at the sunset, and they're like, yeah, we should go. Fuck all this.
Yeah. And so they split, and he kind of gives them a quick little prayer of like, God rest your souls.
Yeah, or like, good luck.
Yeah. He says it in native tongue, and then sort of
so
splits.
they all leave.
I will say, I would love to know more about all that. Like,
I know that's almost like, are they setting up for a sequel? Because that would be fucking rad.
I would love to see and I have some thoughts a little bit later, but yes, I was like, oh man, I want to know more about the native background. Yeah. Because, I'll come back to that in just a minute. But so, because I have a theory about that, so don't let me forget about that one.
Okay.
But so anyway, basically we find out like that guy's let into the house. He kills the 2 people in the house. He like basically like lichen throats them, like where he just kind of rips out their throats. Yeah. And so I guess the impression is there's some kind of something like.
I mean, it's vampires.
Well, no, that's actually the thing. The first time I watched it, I did not think they were vampires. I thought it was demons. Like,
oh, okay, I can see that. They hadn't specifically said anything about.
No, they had not said that, and it wasn't necessarily like I don't know what lure we were kind of dealing with.
Yeah.
And yes, they had like the teeth, but it wasn't like traditional vampire teeth. It was just spiky teeth all around, and then their eyes
glowed,
kind of like
very demonic.
Yeah, it felt very demonic to me. So I was like, and because it was the Delta, I was like, it's got to be demons,
right.
like some sort of demon hell spawns or something.
I like how you say that. Well, it's the Delta, so obviously demons. Like that's
because
like
again, most stories like the devil went down to Georgia and like Crossroads and movies like that where it's like the devil's just kind of down there because Southern people sometimes kind of suck and conjure up shit, which kind of again sort of speaks to this movie. But anyway, the reason why that is brought up is because now we know that there's evil out there, but we just unsure like what this evil is.
Definitely bad.
Yeah, definitely not good. So the Juke is now getting into full swing. Delta Slim is doing his thing, and then he introduces Sammy Preacher Boy to say like, I've heard some stories about like this young kid, and so he brings him up, and he grabs his guitar and he starts to like play. And Delta Slim's like, no. He's like, you gotta introduce yourself. Tell him where you're from. Like, tell him your story.
What you're about.
What you're all about. And so he starts playing, but then it cuts away to, and this is the part that I love, because then I was like, wow, I didn't realize this movie was going to be this heavy with so many like different things that are being told to you. Delta Slim's telling Sammy about like the blues and what it means to play the blues, and it's got to come from the soul, and you gotta believe in it. You gotta feel it. You gotta put it out there. And so, and I guess he's telling him all that, like, I guess before the Juke was going to open, so you're seeing like a little flashback to like earlier in the day or whatever. And he's talking about it's got to come from the soul, and you got to like really, it's got to be all there. And so then it kind of cuts back to to Preacher Boy in the Juke starting to play the music, and it's really good, and everybody in the Juke is starting to be like, oh shit. And then everybody in the theater was like, oh damn, like, this is awesome. And then the narrator from the very beginning comes back. This is like one of the fucking coolest things I've ever seen on film. Like we were talking about it in the car. If you could give this movie an Academy Award for just this scene, for technical achievement, music achievement, just like pure emotional achievement,
just the originality of it also,
and
the execution. I
can't say I've ever seen anything like that. That's what I will say. Like, if people want to know what makes somebody like Ryan Coogler different and better than a lot of other people out right now, and it's like, what's so special about some of the movies that he's making? Man, the guts it takes to put together a scene like that, storyboarding it, trying to make sure that the vision like hits the notes at what it needs to do, because it's a combination of the music being right, the camera movement being right, like that set, the acting, like everything needs to be just right, or none of that is going to work. And it felt fucking flawless.
It was so, I don't know how you reacted to it when you first saw it, but literally when it started, goosebumps for me. Like just all body chills, goosebumps. And then it starts, like that was just like how it starts, right? Like when he's singing and it's so powerful, like immediately like, oh wow. And then it goes into that narration of like,
the narrator comes back.
Yeah, certain people have this power through music to blah blah blah.
It's so like, powerful.
It's so strong
that it can touch the past,
the future
and the present.
And sometimes the devil like hears it.
And sometimes it can. It just goes beyond everything, and sometimes like
it's just so powerful that like it can, and that's like the power of that kind of musician storyteller, and like every culture has had it, blah blah blah.
Right.
And it's that combination of him starting to sing and the narration kicking in. It's like, oh, full body chills, goosebumps.
Right.
And then the camera starts panning around, and you see like all of the people in the juke, they're dancing, they're having a good time, and it's almost trance like how they're dancing and how it's filmed. It's kind of almost slow motion.
Yeah, because the audio almost. Well, it's funny you say that because it's not slow motion. It is like at regular speed, but the audio is now blending as if like you were saying, you're transporting between eras.
Yeah.
And so like it almost feels like canned audio, like
Right. That's
like,
what it was. Yeah.
right. And so it gives you this impression that things are going slow motion, but they're not. But it's because like the music would sort of like come in and blend into something else, and then the other one would pull out.
Right.
And then as it did that, what was changing on the screen would sort of match up with the music, even though it didn't dominate the music, but it was now added to the music.
Right. And I mean, I got so, and it's funny, and I say this as somebody that's not a musician.
Right.
I enjoy some music, and I learned a little bit when I was a kid, but I'm not like a musician like you and your friends are or anything like that. I never played in band or orchestra or whatever. And this is from somebody that's obviously non-black. But that scene made me so emotional. Like, I don't know why I'm like emotional now. I started like crying. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it was so powerful.
Yes.
I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah, you're right. Like for me, because I'm a terrible like male that has no emotions. But I will say like my belly did feel like very warm with like, oh man, because things that I loved about music when I was like doing a lot of it, especially like in high school, and like we learned like one of the performances that we played, and again like I'm Hispanic, I'm not black, but when we were learning music from Africa, we played like an African piece for our state like rankings or whatever, and like we played it like we did it really well. But I think partly because, like, from our instructor down, like, we talked a lot about, like, a lot of this you just feel. Like, you have to feel this in order for it to be right. This is not technically the music is written in front of us, but it is only to give you a guidance of, you do have to play it together. But we were playing with, like, our fingers, and we were doing things that were very, like, non-traditional to, like, music. Like instead of playing with like sticks or drumsticks and doing things or whatever, like it was we were doing stuff that like I guess you could say was just non-conventional. Okay. And on top of the fact that it was non-conventional, there was a lot of stuff that that I guess like you could say I don't know, like it was a very different experience, and I feel like by doing that it definitely felt that way, like watching this movie, right, where I was just like, man, I'm starting to have those feelings again of what that felt like to be that entranced, and like to have to be fully embracing the music in order for it to come out the way you want it to. And so like in that sequence,
it's just sorry, not to interrupt, but just kind of like getting my feelings out. But like it was just such a stunning achievement, I think, because if you fumbled that execution, it would have come out so corny.
Sure. Yeah.
And so gimmicky, right?
Right.
But how they played the scene was like they're playing all these kinds of different music. Preacher Boy starts it, but then it's like it cuts into like some actual
like African tribal sort of music.
There's tribal music, there's jazz, there's rock. But then you see people representative of that music in the crowd of the juke, along with the dancers on there. And you think about how to execute that, and I'm like, just costume people with other people in like the time period costume. That's gonna look weird. There's something so emotionally like powerful the way he shot that scene. I can't even describe it. The way, if you just like put that on paper and did a pitch of that scene, some guy in a suit is gonna be like, what is this? Like, I don't understand what you're doing here. Is it ghosts? Are we being transported through time? Like, is there magic happening? Like, what's happening? Like, but the way it's it's execute, like, honestly, like, I was so, like, flabbergasted by that scene. I was crying through the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was so, I honestly kind of felt a little insane, because I'm like, why am I, like, so moved by
Right.
this? And, like, I had no real words or understanding why, but it was such a powerful, like, display of connection to your,
Right.
like, your roots, your people, what music means to cultures, all in one scene with not a single word uttered except for the song that's being sung.
Right.
It was crazy how moving that
Yeah,
was.
and I think that's like the power of art, right? Or that's what the power of art is supposed to do, right? Is make you feel those emotions. But it's now like double like powerful because it's it's the
Right.
power of visual film, but like music as
Yeah.
well. And I love that he's telling this story of like the roots of like
Yeah.
black culture music and where it sort of comes from, because I talked to Jaime about this a little bit when we talked about Crossroads. It's like one of the very few things that has been created in American culture is the blues. Like there are not
Yep.
many things, if anything, that is not brought in from another country or whatever.
Right.
But blues music is one of the few things that is true, and it comes from a place. It comes from a very sad place,
Right.
right? And
Right.
hence the term the blues. But if there was anything that was truly American, it's like the blues and
Right.
and that form of that. And so seeing how that transposed over time, and I don't know if you picked up on this, and it was kind of funny because I feel like in IMAX I loved it. It seemed a little jarring for some people. I know, like when I talked to Alex about this, you know, he had some commentary on it because in that sequence, it cuts between 1.9 aspect ratio
Oh, interesting.
to 2.76. But if you pay attention to that whole sequence, it's a one-er shot. It's which it is and it isn't, because
Oh, sure.
they kind of show their hand by the fact that it's not all filmed with one camera.
Yeah.
But the camera just constantly moves, and it's like you're floating through
You're
the
like
history of
walking. Yeah.
music.
You're like walking through.
Right.
Like you're there with them.
It's hard to like almost describe. You have to see it.
You really have to see it.
But I do love like you were saying, like they're like the camera will pan in front of a person, and then that person reveals like someone else from an era that fits that music, and then they are now a part of the audience that's
Right.
listening. And I don't even know how they pulled off. I was trying to pay more attention to it this time, but I still couldn't catch like the amazing technical blends that they must have done to mask out people and then mask in a person as they're coming in. Cause it was like, there's like a dude breakdancing, and then there's dudes playing like on turntables.
Yep.
And then there's like a woman, they go into another room, which it's probably easier to do that one. But there was a woman that, crap, I don't know why I feel like an old person now, cause I can't think of the term, like what young people do now when they like sort of, like
you're talking about twerking.
Twerking. There it is. I couldn't remember the name of it.
You're so funny.
But she was twerking, but it's like, it's not because twerking's a bad thing or whatever. It's like, it comes from this, these are the origins of like, why do black people dance that way? Da, da, da. It's like, because this is where they come from.
Yeah.
And this is why this is important. And this is why movies like this
This is where it all comes from.
are so important. That sequence is like, you could show that in a film class. You could show that in a music class. You could show that in a history class.
I mean, honestly, like an English lit class.
Yeah.
To show like, this is how this narrative structure is composed. Like, I mean, honestly, just that alone, outside of the rest of the movie being pretty excellent, that alone, I don't know. He should win some kind of award for that scene. It's kind of wild.
Something like,
and not to be like so fangirly about it. I don't want to get people's expectations too high or whatever. But like,
I'll set him.
Honestly, I never seen anything like it, and never seen anything so well executed that hits so emotionally. At least for me personally.
Right.
I haven't really read a whole lot of how other people are reacting to it or whatever. But like, me personally, not coming in completely cold, not knowing that was going to happen, not knowing that music was even going to play such a big role in the film, it was so incredibly powerful.
Right. I loved I think we can talk about the rest of the movie if we want, but honestly, like we could talk for 2 hours about just this sequence
this scene
because
it's stunning. I mean, so stunning.
It really it is. Like it's amazing, and I wish I could be a fly on the wall when the edit was done with the audio, and they were like, "Man, we nailed it. Like we achieved what we were trying to get across." And I'm sure they went through like tons and tons of iteration of like trying to make it the flow and everything right. Because like I said, it's like, I think especially like when you're a culture like, you know, like people like Black people from the South, or like, you know, Hispanic people from like the Southwest, or, you know, or you know, when they sort of talk about like knowing your roots and your history and all these things, right? And like it isn't until you get a little bit older and you have life experience to understand those things. And it's hard, like you can put it in a book and you can put it in wherever, and you can try to get people to understand like, oh, you like this? Well, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for like Run DMC, or like some of these, like, you know, some of these band or musicians or people that made up the foundation. But then like even back then when Run DMC was trying to get up and running, they're like, oh, you wouldn't even be around if it wasn't like for Buddy Guy or some of these other guys who sang the blues. You're just doing a spin-off or a variation of this, right? And everything just branches and gets more, it becomes more a part of the culture. So it has to adjust over time, right? Like for as angry as people like myself or anybody is like, why aren't there video stores and da-da-da? It's like, well, because things evolve, and you have to like, there has to be some level of change. And if you don't adapt, then it's not gonna continue to exist. Right. And so, especially when it comes to music and culture like that, like this whole sequence just shows, here is the seed that led to all these things, both like in the past and going forward, and where it's kind of going. And like, it's funny because like for a moment, it almost feels like a fourth wall, like you get pulled out of the movie. And you're kind of being not lectured in a oh, I'm going to talk down to you. No, it was more like let me tell you about why this is important. Yeah. You know, not only this movie, but the film and me, and why I want to make movies like this. It's all right here. Like it's all in this sequence. And then let's get back to the movie. Yeah. And it was just like,
it's so like, it's funny how well it blended with the themes and the atmosphere and all of that. And just how well it flows back into like, okay, we're still in the horror movie.
And now we're back. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't jarring. It wasn't like out of place. It felt like it belonged there. Right. But it felt like it was telling the same story that it's been telling as far as like Black culture and Black history. Right. And this is the community that we have. And this is the things that we've had to endure, to persevere. And this is... And beyond all of that, this is the kind of joy that we have found even after all that. Right. And it's so compelling because, and the fact that it is in the middle of the movie, I think is so important because like, okay, we're still going, because it's almost like symbolic of like, there's still the rest of life to deal with. Right. But we do not forget what's come before and what's came from that. Right. But you know, there's still everyday life that's happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so it was like needed. Yeah. Like it was needed. It's absolutely, there was no cutting that scene. You know what I mean? Like, even though it doesn't narratively necessarily inform the rest of the story. Right. There is still, it's so powerful because it anchors like the community and the people and the characters. In that like, okay, this is the juju. This is the where the power comes from. Right. And this, like, whether for good or for calling evil, right. This is how it happens. And this is why it's so powerful. And it's so, I don't know. It's I mean, I can blah, blah, blah about it all day. Yeah. It's maybe one of my favorite scenes like ever committed to film. Yes. And I would agree. Just having seen it, beyond the stuff that we watch over and over again, like it's almost it makes me think a little bit, even though it's not even remotely similar, it makes me think of how I felt when I first saw that scene in Goodfellas. Where he's walking through. Yeah, the oneer walking through the club. And obviously that's not as culturally impactful as what Ryan Coogler's doing in this movie. But it has that same feeling of like, there's a lot at stake
Right.
in this one scene because we're trying to do something different, and it's gonna change a lot of things going forward. Because I mean, you've seen how we've all seen how much that has been copied over time, and it's basically it created a trope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was so important and pivotal that it made its own thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if necessarily like this scene in this movie is kind of in that same ballpark, but it gives me that same feeling of like, I feel like for me, like a lot of things have changed now for me, because it's like, if nothing else, I don't know that there's a whole lot of things that can live up to that scene at this point.
Yeah, I think it's a tall order to try to beat that now.
Yeah.
And so, I guess we can go on with the rest of the movie. I will say, like, I'm not saying the rest of the movie is bad.
No.
But to me,
that was like the peak.
Yes. It peaks so early in a good way, because the ride down the rest of the way is just fun. Like, at that point, it's a lot of fun. And the only way I could think of it, and this is why I wanted to save it for the podcast, I didn't want to tell you in the car. But to me, and I don't, by no means do I mean this in a bad way. This movie is its own thing. But like, most movies, everybody is influenced or inspired by other people. And I'd be very curious to hear what he has to say here. But after that sequence, because basically, Preacher Boy plays music that's so powerful that the demon or whatever it is that was in that prior scene looks up to he looks up to the sky. And he can feel it. And he's like, I sense something that I need.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go that way. Because it's coming from there. So he has basically like opened the door to everything for just an instant. But it was enough for evil to hear it. And they do talk about in the movie earlier how like, they don't say vampires, but they say like there's evil. And they just refer to it as evil.
Yeah.
And they talk about how the dad, like Smoke and Stack's dad, he was an evil man, and they keep referring to evil, like in the term evil.
Yeah.
And I want to say, is it Annie?
Yeah.
She talks about how like you need to be careful because there's evil out there, but she explicitly calls it evil. And even in that opening montage, they talk about evil, and then they show 2 red dots.
Right.
But when these people show up, I don't know if you noticed, but they're not really red. It's just reflective light. So it appears to be red, but it is not red. It's just whatever the color of the light is. So sometimes it's white and sometimes it's blue. But then I guess like because the movie has mostly like an orangey reddish tint, it's kind of red.
Interesting.
Because when you see them up close, it's not red.
Right.
It's just like
weirdly like translucent.
Yeah, and it's reflecting light back. So what I was going to say is like from this point forward, and if you're already listening, we've already spoiled the movie, but this is the oh crap, I'm forgetting the name of the movie now. But this is the Dust from Dusk Till Dawn moment where like it is now
it all goes to hell.
Yeah, it all goes to hell, but it is now like clear that this is a vampire movie because
100%.
These 3 white travelers who have a banjo guitar and a mandolin, I think is what it was. A little
banjo guitar. I don't know.
She had like a little.
Looked like a violin.
It could have been. It could have been.
But she was strumming it, so I don't know.
She was picking at it. Yeah. So yeah, it could have been a violin or like some sort of little mandolin or something. But they come and they want to be invited in.
A fiddle.
A fiddle. Yeah. I think that's what it was. And so they want to be invited in so they can play music and drink and spend their money.
Yeah.
And everybody at the door is like, something don't seem right. Like white people at night, like kind of creeps me out.
Well, white people going to this primarily black gathering, they're like, nah, that's fucking suspicious as hell.
And they're just worried because they're like, well, what if they brought friends? Like, it's very quick for them to be like, oh, they tried to do something and they call the cops, and then the cops are going to believe them and not,
something that never happens now.
Right, exactly. No, that we've taken care of that years ago.
We solved that problem.
Yeah, no, that one's checked. So they're like, no, y'all need to leave. And they don't go too far away, but like all the events of what's happening on the inside is like, they're basically just having a good time, wanting to spend time with their Juke, but coming to the realization that they're not making enough money because of the credits that they're having to spend, or the credits that people are using. Smoke is kind of like, we need cash.
Yeah.
Because according to my numbers, like, we will be out
Yeah.
in 2 months. Like,
Right.
we won't get any further if we're going to be taking in this level of credits. So they kind of make a decision of like, maybe we should go talk to those white people. Maybe they do
see
have
how much money they do have.
Yeah, see if they do have money, see if we can get some of that money. The music and everything else sort of continues on the inside. And then, yeah, sure enough, they are vampires because they start slowly taking out people one by one that were in the house. I guess we can probably avoid some spoilers of who exactly is taken out, which is probably fine. But I will say there's a reason why I have that poster on the wall for Demon Knight, because I love Demon Knight. And this movie, so the last half of this movie is Demon Knight and
can see that.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yep.
Like, two of my, like, they're not like top favorite movies of all time.
Pretty high up there.
But I love those movies because I had a lot of fun with them.
Yep.
This movie, I had a lot of fun with it, but I was super like into it.
Yeah.
Whereas like with Demon Knight,
haha.
have it. It's like, maybe I'll look at my phone for a minute, or I'll, go get a snack and come back. I'm not going to pause it or rewind it. It's like, it's fine. Just kind of keep going. I would not feel that way with this movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was super engrossing.
Yes, it was very intense.
Super bought into it the whole time.
Yes, there is no comedy like there is
a light chuckling kind of.
There is
funny
situational,
moments,
yeah,
but it's definitely not. It's very situational.
It's not slapstick at all.
It's like Delta Slim will say something kind of a little off the cuff, but it's like, that's just him being him.
Exactly. Like, but he's not playing it up for laughs.
Right.
He's being like how people would literally be, because there's like that whole.
Because that one person that's like that.
Yeah, there is the whole sequence where like, I think it was actually with Cornbread or somebody in there. I can't remember who it was, but like a sequence kind of goes down and they shut the door because like crazy shit's going on out there, and it freaks out. That's what it's. Smoke almost gets
yanked out.
Gets yanked out, and like that whole sequence plays out. It's super tense, and then they pull in, they shut the door, and they're all kind of like catching their breath, and like Delta Slim's like, "Do y'all smell that?" Like it's like you're thinking, because at other points they're like, "Do y'all hear that?"
Yeah.
And they can hear from the outside. And he's like, "Could you all smell that?" And he's like, "What?" And everyone's like, "No, I don't think so." And he's like, "Because I think I just shat myself." Because that sequence, like, we all were able to let our catch our
tension,
breath. Yeah. So like little comedy like that,
but definitely not. It's definitely played straight throughout the movie.
Not Demon Knight comedy, and
it's
Dusk
not
Till Dawn copy.
It's not played to be campy or anything. It's pretty much straightforward horror.
Yeah.
And it's actually, in that sense, it actually made me think a little bit of 30 Days of Night a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And so what I like about the second half of the movie is like, so now it literally is like Demon Knight, in that they're trying to keep them from coming in.
Right.
They're trying to figure out what they're going to do.
Right.
They're starting to pick off people one by one. And what I love about it is, so we had an opportunity to take in the blues at the front half, and now in the back half, now that the demons are eventually they're like outed as vampires, because Annie is like, she comes to a realization of like, oh, they're not evil, they're vampires.
Yeah.
Like, she actually has a name for them.
Yeah, which is, I thought was kind of funny.
I thought it was awesome, because I was like, okay, so there's more in this universe that's real.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that.
She mentioned, I think it's like an old timey word. I think it's haints is what it's called. Like, if it's just kind of general name usage for like ghosts or bad spirits,
evil,
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I love that she gives them a name, and then everyone's like vampires, like what the fuck?
Like what do you
and
mean?
she is like our guide now, because she knows how to deal with them.
What's his name from Buffy?
Giles.
Yeah, she becomes Giles at this point. She's like, we need wooden sticks, we need garlic, we need this, we need that.
But then like I said, like the blues aspect kind of goes away because now they are on the defensive.
Yeah.
And now that the vampires are on the offensive, you can hear the people on the inside go like, "Do y'all hear that?" And they're now like, they're singing like almost like a battle hymn because it's like Irish.
It's like Irish music. Like a lot of it is like, it sound like kind of folk or
Very folky. Yeah.
Not hymns, but like definitely like kind of folky kind of music.
No, it was like it was folky music, but to me, the way that it was played off in the movie, it's like it is like a battle hymn because now
You can see that, like
they're getting themselves all worked up because they know what's coming, and they're gonna have to figure a way to get in.
One guy, the main creepy scary guy, and it's funny because it's not played for laughs. It's played totally straight, and you don't laugh at it. But he does like the river dance kind of in the middle of a circle, and it's somehow kind of intimidating and a little frightening. And I'm like, I never thought I would be scared of somebody river dancing like ever.
Because they're I mean, it really is kind of a scary sight.
Yeah, it's them just doing the vampire pep rally of like, we're gonna kill all these fucking people. Like,
they're running circles, they're all white, like they're you know, like it's a scary image. It feels like what do they call it? The one that those guys do like
like a haka?
The haka. Like it kind of felt like that. Like they're kind of like getting themselves like pumped up because really like everybody around them is like slapping and they're kind of like they kind of like step in and step out.
Yeah, they're running, like they're dancing in a circle. It looks really creepy.
Yeah, like they're ready to they're really working themselves up to a fight. Like and I love that because it's like the juxtaposition of like this blues music. And now we have this like fighting like Irish
super
music.
Energetic music.
Yeah, and like they're going to clash, even though we're not really hearing much blues at this point.
Right.
Which is kind of fine because it's like it's that what opened and brought this in.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe there's like a deeper meaning to some of that because I feel like Ryan Coogler may have kind of said that because there is, I think some. If you're not paying attention, some sort of lines about like, well, that music was kind of stolen from us anyways, like,
right.
Because it originated with like blues or whatever, and I don't know if he's trying to say something there, but it all kind of leads to like the apex of like they eventually get in because they are running low on options, but I think they're able to rile up one person inside enough that they've kind of like almost like lost their mind of like, you know what, it's now or never. Like, let's just stand our ground and whatever happens,
we got to
happens.
do something.
Yeah, because
like some of the characters that are still in the building, they're like, I'm not going to wait for sunrise. That's stupid. Like, they can do any kind of number of damage to us, the people in town, whatever. Like, we're not going to just sit here. That's dumb.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing I like about it too is right before all that happens is like the vampires give their sales pitch, I guess you could say, on like why they want to be a vampire.
I was talking to my sisters and they're like, he had some good points.
He had a lot of good points. And I was trying to understand, I was like, I wonder what is trying to be said here other than like, because you're still doing evil. Like, I'm not sure, like they don't really mention that in the sales pitch, but basically the vampire people are saying like, look, we all share a common bond, I guess, like once we share like they're like the board.
They're like they're a little Hy-Vee.
Yeah, they all can feel each other's emotions.
They know each other's memories,
right?
All that stuff.
They share everything, but I think it's interesting, and what I'm going to say maybe is a little controversial if I say it in a way that doesn't make sense, but it's almost like what's trying to be said there is like, yeah, but that's what makes us unique are these experiences. Like you can't. Like, if you're a blues person, and it's funny because in Crossroads, they talk about this too, is like, you have to have those experiences. The blues comes from like
your
girlfriend leaving you,
right.
Or like your friends ditching you, or having no money, or having to travel the country, or being oppressed by the white man or whatever, right? That's where the blues comes from.
Right.
And so now if that's part of like a unified hive mind,
it's not the blues.
It's not the blues. And you're not like, I don't want to say there's nothing special about you because nobody wants to have to live a slave's life in order to have those stories. But it is what, if you get into the religious aspect of it, it's like God's plan or whatever, like that's what was given to you and you make what you make of it. Whereas like, there's almost like, you could say the modern time, it's like, well, like I'm a white dude and I understand the blues and and I play it technically the way it is, but I also went to Juilliard and
to study it
and I have nothing to worry about. Like,
sure.
Like the blues from that person, and whether, again, I don't know if it's controversial or not. It's like, it doesn't have soul because it doesn't come from a place where it's tough, right?
Right.
That's what makes that powerful, not the fact that you can technically do it. So if the vampires are trying to get at, like, oh, we're just all unified, then it's almost in a similar way that, like, Elvis is saying, like, well,
it's all the same thing.
Sure, it's rock and roll, it's the blues, I'm a blues man, and, I became famous from it because I look like Elvis, whereas the people that actually created the music that built him, they get no credit for it.
Yeah.
But then they would be like, oh, but we're all cool, we're all even.
It's all the same, right?
We're all equal, and it's like, yeah, but also you're getting all the money and attention and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I believe that. So, like, what they're selling doesn't necessarily seem to jive with me.
Yeah.
But I get it. They're like, oh, you can live forever, no pain.
Well, the pitch, right, is that, like, we're all a family and you don't have to be anybody's servant or slave,
right,
and because we're all equal, and
oppression doesn't exist in our world.
Like, and whoever we come across that we don't like, then we can kill him, and because whatever, we're all like a big happy family, and we can do that. We have that power. A small price of not being able to see sunlight again, but whatever, who cares,
right?
But I think it is kind of to that point, and kind of like in that same tangent that you're saying, I think, is Annie brought up the fact that, like, they take over your soul. Right. I think is from her perspective, and I think it is not unrelated to what you're saying, in that, like, it's still you, but now you've given ownership of what makes you to somebody else.
Right.
So I think in that sense, it does make that distinction of, like, yeah, what they're pitching doesn't sound that bad,
right?
But it also takes away, like, your own kind of agency, and like you were saying, what makes you,
right?
For better or for worse, right?
Right.
And maybe you have gone through some stuff that maybe nobody should ever have gone through, but, like, at the same time, like you're saying, like, that's kind of your journey,
right?
And that's what you had to go through, whether for better or for worse, whether you kind of rise above it or not. That's yours,
right? Exactly.
And so I think that, at least in the movie, that's trying to say, like, you can choose for, like, the simpler, the more comfortable stuff, and then maybe kind of, like, cede some, like, kind of concede parts of yourself, kind of in that trade,
right?
But you lose a big chunk of yourself as well.
Yeah, and, like, almost to, like, a little meta out of it all, right, is like, and I don't know Ryan Coogler's whole back history and story, right, but being, like, who he was, and being a person of color growing up in what would have probably been a tough time for a lot of people. And then, we joke about, like, oh, we've solved, this or that. I mean, racism is unfortunately been around and ain't going anywhere. And it's more prevalent than it's ever been in our culture right now. And I feel like it, if there's anything that I guess you could say about the, we always talk about how, like, oh, this, this timeline that we're living in sucks. But you also get people that get so much emotion and so much anger, but also know how to articulate that in a way that we wouldn't maybe, and I can't say this for sure, and I don't want to speak for the guy, but we may not have a Ryan Coogler who has something really important to say if it wasn't for the fact that you have to have something to fight against, right?
Absolutely.
And we're fighting against it now. And I hate it, and it sucks because some of us just want to try to make it. Like, we just want to, like, make the next paycheck and being able to, have our dogs and our cats and do our things. And then there are some people, I don't know, I won't say that are better than us, but have, like, the strength and mental, like, aptitude to say, you know what? I've got something to say, and I'm going to put it into this movie in a way that, like, I don't want to say, fooled you. But there's a lot being said in this movie.
Absolutely.
That's more than just it's a vampire movie. Because it is way more than a vampire movie.
Well, I think the skill comes from it in that, like, we're discussing it now, and we're gonna keep discussing it, and people are gonna continue to discuss it. The fact that there's a lot of different ways you can look at this movie besides being just a vampire movie. Although you could very much enjoy this movie as just a vampire movie. But like you were saying, is he trying to put some symbolism in here? Is he trying to say something with when he says this thing? We don't know. And I think, as in any piece of art, that's kind of the joy in it, is that once it's released to people, it can, it's everybody's now, right? Like, you can read into it however you want, and it can mean whatever you want. And I'm sure he had some, obviously something drove him to make this movie and to make certain statements within the movie, but like, and it at the end of the day, it's his piece. But like, just with any piece of art or anything that you create, once it's released into the world, that it kind of, a little piece of it belongs to everybody.
Right.
So I think the fact that we are talking about it, and more people are talking about it, like word of mouth. I mean, it's still growing as far as box numbers.
It's growing exponentially because of word of mouth. Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know where I was going with that. But just, I guess just saying that, like, I do like that it wasn't heavy-handed, and it wasn't trying to make any specific, like, message about this, or it symbolizes racism very specifically or anything. It's just like, these are the people that are living in this era, and something's happening to them. An outside force is coming to attack them, and they're still living within this universe that there's like stuff is happening.
Right.
Besides that, like almost like in spite of the vampires.
Right.
Right. They're living in Jim Crow era. They're having to deal with white supremacists. They're having to relationships with each other and what that means. So I think the personal touch in this movie is not the fact that he's trying to hammer in a message, or he's trying to say something political, or he's trying to get any kind of important message across. It's more like, I'm going to tell this story, and it's people within this time period, within this situation, and this is what's happening to them.
Right.
And whether that means something to you or not, like, it's almost besides the point, because this is the story that I'm telling. And I really appreciate that it's not such a heavy-handed treatment where, like, I feel like people a little bit, at least in the past couple of years, have been well-intentioned in that, like, oh, they want to course correct a little bit kind of the sins of the past as far as filmmaking, of like, everything was very non-PC back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So now we're going to course correct and make the super kind of heavy-handed message in this movie that, like, we want to promote, like, feminism. So we're going to be super heavy-handed, and the bad guy is ultra incel assholes that spawn, like, they're calling the devil so that we can get rid of feminism or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they're actually, like, we actually have watched movies like that where it's like, the intention is there, but there's not the skill of, like, just tell a story, and if it happens to have those elements, then that's fine. But like that, I don't know, being so heavy-handed about it almost like misses the point of making this piece of art, because it's like, are you trying to tell me something, or are you trying to tell a story? You know what I mean? Like, instead of dictating what it should be and how it ought to be and how everything in the past was wrong, why don't you, like, tell me a story, and we'll see where that goes as far as, like, in discussion with other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I feel like at the root, at least for me, like, this movie is about perseverance, like the elements and how, like, if I was making a film, and when I've tried to do this in the past, like, what am I trying to tell? Right. And if it's a story about perseverance, it's like, okay, that's the base. Right. And then how do I put the pieces on it that make sure they support the idea of perseverance? And this is done in a way that's like, it's masterpiece in the sense of, like, you're telling a lot about, like, the history of Black people and music and things that, were there. But like you were saying, not in a way that it's like, all right, let's turn to page 27 of, like, the racism. Racism during the Jim Crow era. Like, it's not that. It's all layered on this continued story of perseverance. Right. And I say that because the way the movie ends, and again, we've already said we were going to talk spoilers, but Preacher Boy lives all the way to the end, which I thought was awesome. Yeah. And then you see him in 1992, which I thought was like a nice little touch, that it is actually Buddy Guy, the musician, the famous real life blues musician, Buddy Guy. And they show them at the end, and he still has the scars from when he was a kid,
when he was Preacher Boy.
And so he has persevered through cotton fields to Jim Crow,
civil rights,
to fucking vampires and evil, all the way to live to now. And he has an opportunity at the end to like, hey, take the easy way out still, if you want.
Yeah.
And he's almost like, no, it's like the story we just saw would not exist if he didn't kind of go through it, right?
Yeah, that's a good
point.
I
think that kind of goes to the whole, like, the Ryan Coogler thing. Like, and again, I don't speak for the guy, but when you see something as passionate as this, and I know we talk about how we hate the timeline that we're in, but it's about persevering through it, that some of the best art will ever be made, like, not because you always need a villain to fight against, because you would hope that you wouldn't have to,
or pain or hurt, or
but art not only should it not, but it cannot be like limited, or it can be like suppressed by people who don't want it. Like, even now in our current state of affairs in our country, as much as they will want to try to suppress the things that they can't, it won't go away, because as long as we exist, we have the ability to tell these stories to other people, and maybe we'll do it word of mouth. And I hope it never comes to having to do an underground, like, where we do individual, like, zine prints where we're handing them out by hand or whatever, but it'll never stop. It will not happen. And that is perseverance. And that is what I feel like, to me, from an emotional standpoint, is what I felt in this movie, of like, this is the story of perseverance in blues, and where it is now. Yeah. But it could be other things, right? And I feel like that's just like it hit, especially watching it the second time. Yeah. It really hit that note for me of just like, even for me on a personal note, and I feel like this is what art is supposed to do. Like, it's very easy to get caught up in what's happening in our world today, and for the next period that we're all gonna live through it. But we need to persevere. Like, we can't let it get the best of us, because if it does, then these stories won't exist, and we all have our individual stories to tell. And as some people will be like, well, I live a boring life. It's like, no, you don't. To somebody else, it's important, and you just need to, like, make sure that they know about it. Yeah. And I feel like when you say that, but on the level of somebody who Ryan Coogler is, who, it was funny because I remember seeing a little snippet of, he had an assignment where he had to write, but he was like a football player, like in high school. Oh, yeah. He had to write a paper for like a thing, and he wrote it, and his teacher was like, this is really good. Yeah. And you should consider like not doing whatever it is you want to do, and you need to do this. Like, you need to write, because you're able to articulate in a way that most people can't. Right. And you have something that's special. Yeah. And so you should like take that and do something with it. Right. And I feel like that's the case for everybody, right? Like, we just talked for the past like hour and a half about how this movie really like touched us. I don't know if that's going to affect anybody, but maybe it will reach out to somebody, and somebody will be like, man, that was really cool. Like, I should go see this movie. Maybe I can do that. Or maybe I can talk about it or articulate in a way that I can tell my stories too, because this hands down is like the best movie I've seen this year. Yep. It's one of the best movies I've seen in a while. Yeah. Because of all the layers and the stuff about it. I will watch this again when it comes out. Yep. I will watch the making of, I will watch the commentary. I mean, it was just, it was so good. And I'm so happy that it touched you in a way, like, especially during the barn scene, or the Juke scene, the climax, in a way that I didn't expect that to happen. And so when I looked over to you, and you were just kind of like grabbing my hand because you were just like emotionally attached to that sequence, like, that's awesome. Like, that's what it's supposed to do. That's what this is all about. And again, that feeling and all that cannot be suppressed by anything that anybody is trying to do, like in our country, like whether maybe we have to watch it, hey, I made something really special, but you're gonna have to come over to my house to watch it because they've somehow made a law that won't allow us to show it. Well, guess what, motherfucker? Like we're gonna go underground and we're gonna do this the same way that people did back then.
Yeah,
you're just not gonna take that away from us because that is what like makes us like different and special.
Yeah, it definitely is. But yeah, I can definitely see where you're saying about like it's more than anything just with using the blues story as a vehicle. But yeah, it is talking about like just the fight, right? Like fighting to be able to survive, to be heard, to be seen, to just have people know that you exist and you matter. I think kind of almost at like the very basest kind of simplistic level. Like I feel like we can say that about the movie, at least for me. Like just saying that like you're like everybody has a story worth hearing, whether it's through music or through art or through movies or through a silly little podcast where we're pretending to be somebody we're not, you know what I mean? Like, so,
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so many, there's so many layers that you can say about this movie that can feel really powerful, or you can watch it and have a good time with vampires.
Yeah.
So like
absolutely.
in that way, like I think there's so much kind of replayability to it because you can watch it any kind of way and still get a lot out of it, and still be super entertained and have a lot of fun and still be like very emotionally invested.
Yeah. It's like a just a platter buffet of
delicious
options, which leads us to
we still we still have to eat. That's right.
Sweetie, we're always going to do this part. We're always going to do the second half.
We get so like into the movie discussion sometimes I forget, which is not a very good podcast partner of me.
No. It's fine. It's just every time
we just get so like involved in the discussion.
Well, it just goes back to the roots of this podcast, right? Like you and I were having these conversations. We're not doing this for people like per se.
No.
You and I were having these conversations in the car.
It is kind of funny to think about people listening to us when, back in the day, we're just like, oh, blah, blah, blah for hours on end and like in the car or when we get home about like whatever movies we've been watching.
Yeah. I just, I just want to share this with like people because I feel like what we're saying maybe carries some value, but I love people's opinions and but you can't forget that we always do the food part. This is like you're the food part,
right?
You're the part that does that better than me.
Totally.
All right, so now we have to pair this up.
Okay. Okay, you go first.
I'll go first because I'm going to do it all.
I have a long.
Yeah, I'm going to do it all like wrong because I don't know how to. I can't do what you do when it comes to like food and stuff. But here's what I will think, and maybe you can help me like formulate this because I'm not sure. But I will say one of the things about that makes this movie also very awesome on IMAX is like you feel the heat of Mississippi.
Yeah.
It is
the humidity.
Yes,
like the dirt on the roads.
It's just
you can feel how
sweat,
how
like,
itchy it must be to be out in those cotton fields. It felt very tactile.
Yeah. And so in IMAX, I felt that more than I felt maybe in this version.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, that made me think of clearly something fried. So I was thinking like probably some sort of fried like crispy, like very, very crispy, like chicken nuggety.
Ooh.
Like I guess like a tender, but not like a strip tender, but like
like just chunks.
Like I guess what like popcorn?
Like popcorn chicken.
Okay, so popcorn chicken, but super super crunchy, but with like the spiciness.
I was gonna say some hot sauce maybe.
Well, no. I was thinking of like because you also see how going back to that sequence right in the barn where like there's other cultures that are kind of like crossing over, and I think that they're also speaking to the people that are in there because there are people from China and then there are people from like from Africa and stuff, and then they're talking about all these people that have passed through, and so it did have me thinking of like the spicy noodles that you buy me, the pink
bulldog,
bulldog,
the Korean
but like the spicy noodles, but like with some of this chicken. but also like some greens or something. Like this would be like a bowl or a mix of just stuff because like that heat always hits me and I love its flavor, but I'm like sweating like crazy. And you know this because like every time I do it, I have to take off my glasses or they'll fog up. But I love that heat, but I love like that crunchiness and the texture that was like in the movie. And so like, but I also feel like something needs to be in there like a green element, you know, like something that is also crunchy. I don't know if it'd be like a bok choy or something.
Yeah,
or
bok
something.
choy would be good. Yeah.
But also like all that in the end with like, I don't know, like some sort of, I don't know what other element, but like maybe like a hush puppy kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That basically I can use as bread to sort of try to
sop up the sauce.
Yeah, to try to and manage the heat, but. It definitely had me thinking of like spicy stuff, crunchy stuff, just lots of texture.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
And I like again. I mean, this is I'm speaking like a single person, like a bachelor, where I'm like, what do I got in the?
Whenever we do this half of the podcast, I feel I'm almost afraid that people think I just don't feed you anything good.
No.
It's always like corn dog or hamburger helper or mac and cheese.
No, I can speak to what I know, but it's not what I know right now. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying if I had to like, you know, because if not, I'm only asking you to like do the second half of the podcast. But those flavors somehow all fit together.
I can see that, yeah.
Maybe not noodles. Maybe it could be like something like a dirty rice or something that fits more
I do love a dirty rice.
That sort of part of the country, but it's got to be that heat. So something spicy. Something along those lines. So that's what I got. I don't know what it is, but it is
something like that.
It is those things like mashed together, like that KFC thing that they do where it's like
the mashed potato
bowls or whatever,
corn and random nonsense.
What do you got?
So this is it's kind of a long answer. I don't know how much runtime we still have.
No, we're fine. We're good.
Okay. So I used to work, one of my favorite kitchens I ever worked at was this kind of upscale Southern cuisine place down the street from here, not that far. I don't want to name names because it doesn't exist anymore. I initially was drawn to it because the opening chef for it, or I guess technically he was like a consulting chef more than anything else. He was on one of those. He
was on Top Chef.
Top Chef, I guess I can say that. He was on Top Chef, and so I was intrigued, and I wanted to. He'd been around in the Dallas area for a minute, and I had heard of him, and I had eaten at his restaurant before, even before I was in culinary. It was before I started cooking.
You and I went there. Mm-hmm. I think you can say
like a date night.
I think you can say his name. He's famous enough. Like on the
internet. I don't want to necessarily drop too many names. So I had eaten at his restaurant. I was super impressed. I kind of liked the vibe. I'd heard, all kinds of good things about him around the town when I finally started cooking. So he'd always been kind of a name around town that I was familiar with. And then it just so happened that around the time that, I don't know, I'm maybe halfway through my cooking career maybe, that I had heard he was spearheading the opening of this place not too far from us. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check it out. Super nice guy, super, I wouldn't say intense necessarily, but definitely a big personality. And then my working interview that day was a Top Chef style kind of like, make something for us that we can taste using anything out of the kitchen. And I can't remember if I knew it was, I think I knew they had warned me that was going to be the interview process. So I kind of came with some ideas of what I wanted to do and impressed them enough that they did hire me. But I will say it was Black owned and Black operated kitchen. Mm-hmm. I was maybe one of two people that were not Black in the entire kitchen.
Yeah.
There was this one, or I think there were a couple of non-Black people that came through for a while, but there was this one guy, super good old boy. Actually, it was around the time of the first Trump administration, because I remember specifically he came in with a MAGA hat, and we all just kind of looked at him like, I mean, it's funny because nobody was even really like offended because everybody's like, "You're such a dumbass, dude."
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? You're walking into this place with that hat. And it was kind of funny because he ended up like taping over the MAGA so it wouldn't draw so much attention, but he still wore it. Anyway, that's besides the point.
Right.
It was black owned, black operated. And it was very specifically Southern style cuisine. The chef that ran the day-to-day business, the executive chef, I adore. He's a super great guy. His training was from not just here in Dallas. He was from the Dallas area, but he had run a stint over at Commander's Palace in Louisiana, which is very famously a historic. Like it basically is one of like kind of the founding pillars of like Southern food in this part of the country.
Yeah, I didn't
Very
know
well
that.
known, super old. I think I want to say they're still in business. It must be over like 100 years old at this point, something like that. Maybe not 100 years old, but around for
Yeah.
forever now. But pretty much established a lot of like, and it's funny because my boss now, she's from Louisiana, and I was talking to her about this particular chef, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we grew up knowing about Commander's Palace, and when I was a little girl, my grandma told me to dress up real nice in my pretty Sunday dress, and we're gonna go have fancy dinner at Commander's Palace." Like that's kind of like the
Yeah.
level, right, of like the old families from that part of the country. That's where they would go for special occasions, nice brunches, big family dinners, that kind of thing. So he was like really well versed and really exceptional in his southern flavors. Like we had collard greens on the menu, we had shrimp and grits, we had fried catfish.
So good.
It was, dude, it was so good.
I remember when it was from your test, though, wasn't it? Right?
It was like, well, yeah, my test there, you came to pick me up, and they sent me home because they were still testing recipes. They sent me home with just like wrapped up in foil, the fried chicken that they were testing that day.
But it was because you told me there was a very particular way that they made
Very
it.
particular way that they wanted to season it up and fry it. They wanted a lot of heavy spices in it, kind of spicy. Like it almost
Crunchy,
came out
yeah.
dark because
Yeah,
of how
yeah,
heavy
yeah.
the spices were.
And it was also in that.
It was a pressure fryer,
yeah.
which I had never worked with before or since. Kind of a little scary concept of a pressure fryer, but it cooked the chicken in, I don't know, like 8 minutes or something, like whole bone-in chicken.
And it was like
It
juicy.
was juicy. It was delicious. It was
so
crunchy.
good.
So they were testing that recipes when they hired me, and I got to bring home a bunch of chicken all the time. We got so fat that year, let me tell
Oh
you.
man, yeah, we did.
Because we would, all I would bring home was like fried Southern
If I saw you
cooking.
walk in with foil, I was like,
like,
hell yes.
Let's go.
And you were like, did you have dinner? It depends.
Definitely
What is in
not.
that foil?
And I would bring home not just that, but we would always have biscuits, like homemade buttermilk biscuits. It was good eating when I was at that place. And I learned all kinds of recipes. I still know how to make like braised collard greens, fried okra, fried catfish.
Your mac and cheese that you made.
Mac
You've
and
made
cheese.
a couple of
So
really
super cheesy. We topped that at the restaurant. We topped it with oxtail. So good. So anyway, that's all I was thinking of when I started thinking of like, okay, what food should I pair with this movie? Like literally anything from that time for me in the restaurant.
yeah.
It was such a special time for me because I learned so much. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that like, oh, I'm a specialist in like black culture or I have all these black friends. Working in the industry, I'm friends with all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of people. But that singular experience, I think, informed me a lot of like, not just the food, but kind of the culture behind it and how important it is to get certain flavors right because it means a certain thing. It's not just because like, oh, we're just gonna make it fancy and make it a little different. Like you still have that anchor of like it should taste like a specific way
Right.
to kind of come across through like all the people who are looking for Southern cooking. It was a really great experience at the time. And I loved so much my time cooking there. It was one of my favorite kitchen atmospheres, and I still have a lot of affection for those guys, even though we don't really see each other much anymore, as you do with like professional kind of friendships or relationships. Sometimes when you're not in the thick of it with them, sometimes it kind of falls to the wayside, right? But I learned a lot of really good cooking when I was in that place. Mac and cheese, like the cheese sauce straight from scratch. We had like this really nice like redfish dish at one point with like succotash or something like that. It was just really good food. It was like heavy eating. It was as I would come home smelling like fried chicken all the time. Oh, we had like deviled eggs at one point that we would top with like fried chicken skins.
Oh, that's right, the fried chicken skins.
That was such crack for me. Like, cause I think when we rolled that out in the menu, I was working the fryer station, and I would just snack on that. I don't want to know what my cholesterol was when I was working that station, because fried chicken skin was crack for me.
Oh man, I remember that time, and it was funny because remember it was in the same venue of another place that we were eating, that we would go to. It was like a sports. I don't know if it was a sports bar, but
yeah, kind of a sports bar.
It was a bar-ish type atmosphere.
Or after? Before. It was before, right? Okay.
And then I remember because they had food there that we actually liked, and we'd go back.
Yeah, it was just like straightforward bar food.
Yeah, but it was done well.
Yeah, it was well done.
And when we found out they closed, I was like, oh, that's a bummer. And then for you to end up in that same space, but then it still had like a certain vibe to it that it's funny because I know you've told me a little bit about your experiences there. And now that we've talked about this movie, it does kind of feel like that is the kind of place where it's like, it is very like blues oriented in the sense of like, like you were trying to learn. Like whenever anybody wants to learn anything, right? It's like, well, show me how to do this. And it's like, I can show you how to do some of it, but some of it, you got to just feel it. Like you got to 100%. Know.
Those recipes, there were some, we had like a little recipe book, but when they made that spice for the fried chicken, nobody was looking at the recipe. It was all eyeballing like the big bin of flour that we had. They're just like, oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Right.
And then until it tastes good. It definitely felt that way as far as like, that's how we're cooking. Like we're gonna know how everything tastes. We're gonna kind of feel it out. Oh, that was the other thing. I don't know how I forgot about it, but the gumbo at that place does not compare to any other gumbo that I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I'm not from Louisiana, so I don't know whether one way or the other, if it was authentic or it was appropriate to the flavor that we were supposed to be going after. But still, my favorite gumbo that I've ever had was from that place. And that is the one thing that I never got a chance to learn because they would make it so early in the morning because they would start the roux really early, or they would have just like a big batch of roux already ready to go. But it takes so long to cook. They would have to start early in the day before I even got in. So that was the one thing maybe that I'd never learned how to cook over there, which I kind of regret now because it was delicious. But it was like, it's one of those things that's kind of part of such a magical time that like, I don't know if I could duplicate it even if I wanted to.
Sure.
Because you were in a certain headspace, you were with certain people, a certain place.
Well, I think much like this movie and what I think like Preacher Boy at the end is like, no, like, I think I'm good. Like, my travels and my time on this earth, that's like, they're not, can't replicate it. Like, and it's funny because in that movie Crossroads, like kind of the whole point is Ralph Macchio wants that character, I forget the name of the blues guy in there, but he wants him to teach him this one song, and he never does because he's like, turns out there is no song, because he's kind of trying to get the point across of like, it has to come from you. Like, it's got to come from your experiences. And so that's where that comes from. And by the end of that movie, you know, he's able to have enough life experience where he now can play the blues because he's had the events happen to him throughout the movie. And I feel like what you're sort of describing, and even like some of my prior experiences of working on prior projects that I've worked on, like I would love to replicate them, but at the end of the day, like, I can't and I shouldn't. Make the next experience its own thing. Yeah. And like, you can take the lessons learned from it, but enjoy what it is that you're creating, and like persevere, you know, like just work through the hard and, you know, make your thing yours. Yeah. And you know, some people will like it and some people won't. That's okay. Like
whatever. It's all the risk of being in the creative process.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Well, I don't know if you had anything else, but I feel like this is the most we have been involved in a movie in some time. Like the drive home would have led to conversations on the couch to the dinner table. And
even getting ready for bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably be talking about this movie for at least another
time,
weeks. And I hope this spurs conversation with people that are listening, because we really enjoyed it. And I feel like if you enjoy it, then I don't know, maybe maybe you could be a part of our Juke, or our little travel group.
Closing down the video store for a special occasion kind of Juke.
Sure. We can do that. Well, I think that kind of wraps up this episode for sure. I guess if anybody has feedback for us on this episode or wants to, I don't know, if Ryan Coogler somehow listens to this and he's like, hey man, maybe they were onto something.
I'd be dead.
Email me at topshelfvideopodcast@gmail.com and
reach out to our agent. Her name is Zoe.
Yes,
she's
Zoe
also a cat.
Yeah, we'd love to have feedback. Review us, give us feedback, all that good stuff. We'd be happy to take that into some of our consideration. But yeah, time to close up the joint for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
are you gonna do it?
Well, I think okay, so like you do your part and then I'll do my part.
Wait, which part's my part?
I don't know, you take whichever part of it you want.
Okay.
So,
we thought of are we
No, yeah. we finally figured out our sign off. Yeah. So my name is Eli.
I'm Denise. And tip your server.
Or buy the staff a round of beers.
We just fumbled that a little bit.
Yeah,
that's
a
right.
little bit.
Okay, next time.
Yeah.
We got it.
Love you.
Love you.
Okay. Yeah. Or
What?
No.
What? No, it's fine.
We'll have flow.
We just have to. Yeah, we just have to. Yeah.